We have a crazy situation right now in Ukraine. Media barely even wants to report it. The United States is currently backing a full-blown invasion of Russia. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. This is from the Institute for the Study of War. Of course, you want to color in and keep in mind their own bias, but this is basically the best data that we have. Russian forces have been pushed back some 30 square kilometers or so inside of their own territory. And again, this is internationally recognized Russian territory, not territory that they have previously claimed in the Kursk region of Russia. According to Russian officials, some 100,000 Russian citizens have had to flee the area. There are approximately 1 million who are there. There are several towns that have been taken over by the Ukrainians in a so-called shock offensive. Now, the reason why it's a shock is that according to the Ukrainians and to the US narrative, this is supposed to be a war of defense from invasion. So to counter their invasion, Krystal, they have decided to invade territory which they deem Russian. Now, philosophically, I don't really have a problem with this. Of course, whenever you're in a war, you should be doing whatever you need to. The issue is not what the Ukrainians are doing, it's the fact that US NATO weaponry is being employed to literally invade Russia.
Yeah.
And when we flip it around and we consider what it would look like here, this is not disputed territory. This is internationally recognized an invasion. And that is literally the justification for every dollar of the hundreds of billions that we have shipped to Ukraine is to defend against this invasion. And then just consider, can any great power nation sit there and tolerate an invasion of its own territory? If Mexico invaded even up until the city of Laredo or El Paso, would we tolerate that? No, we would bomb them back to the Stone Age, as the sayings go. Now, let's be fair too, this has also demonstrated the tremendous problems with the Russian military that they haven't been able to immediately push this back. Put this up there, for example, on the screen. The Financial Times reports Russian reinforcements have failed to push back the Ukrainian incursion the 6th day. President Zelensky has openly acknowledged taking the war to Russian territory. And there is no doubt, Krystal, that this is 100% with the backing of the United States of America. And given Joe Biden's decline that we just talked about at length, is he even in charge here? And as Americans, can we sit here and risk a literal invasion of Russia at the same time that we have billions of dollars in military assets steaming towards the Middle East, and with the Israelis openly saying Iran is going to attack us and the United States is going to have to once again spend billions to defend Israel from that attack? Can we really tolerate the risk of these two? And the fact that they probably contribute. The Iranians say, hey, we got a lot of military assets tied up over there. And the Russians are saying, got a lot of military assets tied up over there.
That's very true. Yeah. And meanwhile, you know, the media has basically lost interest in this story.
No,
There's
they don't
very
care.
little coverage of it. You know, J.D. Vance in all of his many interviews he did yesterday, there was not, I think, one question about.
He brought it up once in a print interview, but yes, to any of the media people, they didn't bring it up.
They didn't bring it up.
Yeah.
Like, what could be more important than we're backing the invasion of a nuclear-armed superpower? And hey, how's this going to end? Where is this leading? What's your plan? You know, if you were in the White House, what would your side of the equation be? And there's zero interest in it. You know, people have lost interest in this story because it is a lot messier than it was in the early days when it was just like, go Ukraine, and Ukraine had Russia on the back foot. Now you're in this long, grinding war of attrition. And make no doubt about it, the fact that the Biden administration finally caved and sent those F-16 fighter jets, that is a big part of the reason why they were able to make these gains. You'll recall, early on in this war, Biden was very resistant. He was very careful about what he sent. There was a lot of concern about potential escalation. There was, I mean, the idea in the beginning that you would send F-16 fighter jets to enable Ukrainian invasion of Russia would have been considered insane. And yet here we are, and no one's even talking about it, which is even more insane, quite frankly.
Well, we have that. So let's go and put, please, D4 up on the screen. In terms of the F-16s, they began to arrive. Now, actually, what's even more troubling is not only the F-16s and the way that they've gotten their hands on that, it's that all of the precision-guided munitions are very, very difficult to manufacture here in the U.S. We have very limited stocks of them. And of course, what has the Biden administration done? They've decided to greenlight shipping those precision-guided munitions for the F-16 back to Ukraine. And so they're going to be using like precision-guided weaponry from US stockpiles, which are difficult to manufacture when we're in the middle of two global conflagrations, which possibly and very, I wouldn't say likely, but possibly that US forces could get themselves into. We also literally have Zelensky openly acknowledging this. D3, please. Where for days, and usually when the Ukrainians pull some terrorist attack or whatever in Russia, they're like, oh, what a tragedy. It's crazy that somebody would do that. They're just openly saying it. In his video address that was late on Saturday, he said Ukrainian military is pushing a war onto the aggressor territory. Now, again, I want to say philosophically, I don't care about this. It is normal, actually, to try and hit your enemy wherever they are and to throw them off balance. But when it's America's role, and we're the ones who are funding all of this, and we are the ones who experience any potential blowback, then that's a real issue. We also, shockingly enough, yes, it's true the Ukrainians can pull this off. And then this morning in the Wall Street Journal, they talk about how the Ukrainian commander is begging for more troops. They have no idea what to do. They've had 6 days worth of success. And now they're like, do we hold this territory? What do we do with this territory? Now we have to pull stuff away from previous defensive fronts over here. Their own military leadership has no idea what to do with these gains. So yeah, it's been a good PR stunt. Can you hold it? Are you now going to annex it into Ukraine? Are you going to, imagine the hypocrisy and the sheer insanity of bargaining, and claiming that your territory needs to be given back to you, but then occupying internationally recognized territory and swapping it. Now that's a very different moral narrative, isn't it? Than saying, well, we're just fighting back against the people who have invaded our country.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is that the longer this drags on, there's the moral ambiguity increases, the so-called justness of their cause decreases, their overall ability to even stand this without literally tens of billions of dollars a month having to flow there in Western aid. It shows us that this cannot go on forever. And we all know how it's going to end. And so they refuse to end it currently. We refuse, frankly, to responsibly end it. And we bear the ultimate risk for anything going wrong.
And that's a real question. This has been, for Ukraine, this has been a real show of force. It has exposed, as you said, real weaknesses on the Russian side that they haven't been able to repel these forces on their own territory. Obviously, the Ukrainians are trying to demonstrate that the entry of the F-16s into this conflict is a real game changer for them. They also just called up a bunch more men and are trying to constitute 15 new battalions that they also want to use to try to bolster the manpower issues that remain a big problem for them. The ammunition issues remain a big problem for them. They're still taking on a lot of water in eastern Ukraine. The most hopeful thing you could say about this, no one really understands or knows what their strategy is, except for them. Maybe even the US doesn't know because they seem to keep a lot of things from us. The most hopeful thing you could say is, well, maybe they're trying to strengthen their hand for potential talks.
Right.
Maybe that's what the play is here. And if so, okay. But let's have some indication from our leaders what we think, where we think this should lead, where we think this is going, since we are so deeply intertwined with the Ukrainian cause and with this offensive. And, if this is to strengthen the hand for potential talks, we need to start laying the groundwork also for what a, not maybe a just resolution to this outcome, but a reasonable resolution to this outcome that everyone could be angry about but ultimately live with might look like. Because when you just have the continuing narrative from Zelensky and from us that there's not going to be any territory lost and it's all or nothing and we're in it forever, then it's very difficult to turn around and come to the table and have talks and try to come to some sort of a resolution ultimately.
Absolutely, very true. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.